Today, I want to jump hundreds of years into the future. To do that, I want to discuss my latest read. I'm talking about a time here where the futuristic cities are crammed with people and technology, and there's technology on every corner. That's the world that Chloe Gong tries to create in her newest novel called Immortal Longings. This book really wasn't the easiest to read from the start. Have you guys ever read a book where the author is overly descriptive? You pick it up for the first time, you get a couple of pages in, and then you stop and think, damn, someone consulted a synonym journal here and is using way too many overly complex words to describe something. That's how I felt when I started reading this book. Truth. I started this book and felt like I was reading every use of the words from those word a day calendars. But once I got through the first 15 pages, I got used to that style of writing and it was mainly a non issue. But I just want to make you aware of that at the start. There is a small ramp up time to read this book, and it might be a turnoff if you're not expecting it. Moving on, though, I want to talk about the summary. This setting of this book takes place in the kingdom of Talon. Now, I'm really sorry. I might butcher probably endless names here. I'm really pronouncing them how they all sounded in my head as I read the book. So if they're wrong, and probably a lot of them are, sorry. I tried my best. So here we are in the kingdom of Talon, and it has two giant twin cities, a metropolis called Sanair. Now, Sanair was once ruled by two kings, but now has one king, King Kasa. He never leaves his palace, and he clearly doesn't care about his people, and he's basically a typical tyrant with no goal in mind other than bow down to me. I'm royalty. Really not super original there. Originally, he was the king of only San, but Air's king was murdered by his daughter Kala, whose goal was basically to overthrow the monarchy for both San and Air. Her reasoning here was pretty stereotypical. She thought, if I eliminate the kings, the kingdom will stop being so impoverished, people will stop starving, everyone will be happier. So she goes through and assassinates the king of Air, like I said, her father, and has a failed assassination attempt of King Kasa. And that basically drives King Kasa, like I said, to never leave his castle. He's afraid of her. And once the failed assassination attempt happened, he basically absorbed Air and now just rules over everything. Our main characters here, there are three. The first one is Kala, the exiled princess. And then the second one you have is Anton Makusa. He's basically the exiled noble. And then the third one is Prince August. And Prince August is attempting to, scheming, we'll say, to take power away from the king. There's a couple other minor characters here, but I really don't think that they're worth mentioning right now because the book revolves around these three characters. And each of these characters has their own endgame in mind. Kala basically wants to win this, I don't know how to describe it. We'll call it the Squid Game. A Squid Game style game to be named the victor. When I say the Squid Game, I'm literally talking about the Netflix TV show. I know tons of people watched it. It's really what this book feels like. The victor of this game basically meets the king face to face. So her goal is to win. So she can meet King Kasa face to face because remember, he's not left his palace in 5+ years now. And she wants to meet him out in the open and kill him, basically finishing what she started 5 years earlier when she murdered her father and took down the monarchy of Air. Anton basically wants to win the game so he can get endless riches and keep his girlfriend Otto alive, who is stuck in the hospital in the stasis mode because she got a sickness. I'm butchering this, but Yaisu sickness. from jumping, which we'll talk about in a minute. But like I said before, the kingdom is really impoverished, and hospital and bills, everybody falls behind and falls into debt. And keeping her in the hospital all these years, he's fallen into impossible debt and wants to win the games to get himself out of debt. The last character that's important is August. Now, August is the prince, and he wants Calla to win the games to basically kill King Casa for him. And his goal there is he's just going to ascend the throne once the king dies. So he goes through and helps and manipulates her throughout the book so she can win and kill him without August having to get his hands dirty at all. The three of them obviously have very different goals in mind, but while they have these different goals, they end up having some common ground and basically work together to try to get to the end of the games. There are 88 total players, and I don't know why. It's probably not great that she didn't explain it, but that specific number is never explained. And Anton, August, and Calla basically intend to have Anton and Calla be the last two fighting to the death. In the end of it, Calla has to decide between her partnership with Anton, which does end up becoming something very different than it is in the beginning of the book, or basically fulfilling her lifelong obsession with destroying King Casa. Now, this one, I want to do something a little different. I'm not going to go over what I liked and didn't like about the book in two separate sections. I'm just going to give an analysis of how I felt about the book and kind of mix it all in together. And I think that'll kind of help us talk a little more openly about it if you guys just, get my overall picture of what I liked about the book as a whole. So the first thing I want to cover is basically the concept of ki and body jumping. I thought the body jumping at first was really interesting. The basic idea behind it is everyone has a ki and physical bodies are disposable. I don't have a better way to describe that, lack of a better word. You can basically invade someone else's body easily by jumping in with your ki, which is basically your soul, and then putting it in another body. And you take over that body as long as your ki is stronger than theirs. At first, I thought this was kind of fun. I'm like, okay, this is allowing for some interesting moments of suspense when the characters can't tell, who is who due to folks being able to jump in other bodies at will. But as the book went on, my mood towards it changed. The whole concept does have some inconsistencies, and I think it ended up raising more questions for me than answers. I really do think the author could have spent more time figuring out the intricacies of how jumping should work. So the first one, a body heals with no ki in it. That sounds super unrealistic. Second, the fact a body can even live with no soul in it. Also super questionable. And even more far-fetched, the aspect is people who get invaded have no recollection of it. When the jumper finally leaves the body, these poor people just stand there super confused, have no idea what's going on, don't know how they got there. I didn't care for that. There's no way somebody's sharing a body with somebody else and the other ki isn't aware of it. It just seems like a weird plot hole. I was also supremely disappointed that she never touched really on the legality of something like this. She's very dismissive about it. She says in the book, yes, jumping is illegal. However, it's clear that everybody does it with basically no penalty. And she really ignored how exploitive it is. It takes away somebody's free will and body autonomy. Not cool. And don't even get me started on the bodies of children being invaded. All I say to that is shame on you, Chloe Gong. You need to add that in the book. The quote I'm about to read you from this book pretty much sums up what I just said, and I find it absolutely disgusting. This is someone else's body, but in San Air, that detail is as normal as jumping. When it comes to this sort of use, bodies are only accessories, discardable and utilized based on need. absolutely hate that. Another disappointment was the weak character development. I really did appreciate how many of the characters were connected, and she tried to show you that the characters had history together. Her attempt at backstory was, trying to give the characters depth, but I still think it fell flat. She didn't go into enough detail about any of the characters and what really motivates them. And because she didn't do that, there's no way for you to really connect to them in any sort of a meaningful way. And it's the same theme I talked about in the testing book. If you're gonna write a story like this with the very heavy Squid Games, Hunger Games kind of vibe, you better damn well be giving readers a character to root for, because they need that in such a emotionally heavy book like that. She tried and failed. Not great here. Also, Kalla's relationship with Anton, as it progressed, all of a sudden felt really sudden and forced. August also felt like a one-dimensional spoiled brat who was basically super single-minded and selfish. Maybe that was the goal for his character overall, and if it was, top-notch there. But when the book was over, I didn't feel any emotional attachment to the characters. The characters were all written so their personalities kind of fit into these nice, neat little boxes, almost like they were gift wrapped for various stereotypes. This was a mistake. It makes aspects of the book really predictable, because anybody who reads books will have seen characters like these in other stories. Predictable characters are going to ruin any chance at suspense. Along the lines of suspense, if you have a high stakes fight to the death style game, I expect more suspense and tension in the book. The tension leading up to the final fight was pretty much non-existent, and that final fight was nothing. It was a couple of pages and it was over in the blink of an eye. She did try with some fight scenes scattered throughout the book, and those are good. I enjoyed them for what they were, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but there wasn't enough violence and gore for a book that is trying to sell you on these characters who are willing to die for the chance to get out of debt. If somebody is willing to lay their life on the line in a gladiator-style battle, I'm expecting more desperation, thinking outside the box, tension, and just general fear between these characters while they hunt each other down on their quest to basically be the last one standing and the victor of the games. We didn't get that really at all. Very disappointing. My last critique, and I'll stop there, the world building that she attempts. San Air is described as this foul, dirty, trash-filled Twin Cities capital, and its citizens are starving, they're deeply in debt, and it's so overcrowded you can't even see true sunlight or feel it on your skin. She tries to be descriptive here, but she really fails to actually build upon the political system in which the city is run. She tries to explain the differences between the city and the rural countryside, and that's obviously outside the city wall. But in my opinion, she does a really poor job of explaining the mechanics between the two. Her basic explanation of people flock to the city because they can't afford to live in the rural areas and survive. Okay, but why? How is wealth generated? What are the rural areas missing that is forcing people into the city? How is this affecting social classes? And what's the impact of these armed guards raising over various rural areas? That's pushing people towards the city? And what's the legal system like for situations like this? I think her book really needed a kind of a beginner 101, and that would be for the San Air government. She needed to make the world building make sense by explaining how the government functions. But she leaves so much untouched that it doesn't paint as good of a picture as I think that it should. To be fair, though, she did try. She did a lot of information dumps throughout this book to try to give you backstories and descriptions. But it wasn't enough, because it wasn't written in a way that flowed well. The big blocks of information weren't woven into the story in any kind of elegant way. She presented it to you like you were reading a textbook. Now on to my rating. 2 hearts on this book. I think there's a lot to be desired here. But Chloe Gong has indicated that this book is set to be a trilogy. It also ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. So, okay, I'll bite. I will wait around and read the second book when it comes out in 2024. I do sincerely hope that she looks at the reviews people are leaving, though, and takes the feedback seriously. There's time to turn it around. She has a lot of ground to make up for it because of her mistakes in this first book, especially if she really wants the second book to be a success. The second book is her chance to fix everything that's gone wrong in this book. Address the things that are missing, and please, please make your characters more likable. Would I recommend this book? That's a tough one. It was an okay read. If you go into it with that expectation, then sure, I'll recommend it. The expectation that it's just okay, all right, it's a decent read. If you walk into it already having high expectations based on her debut novel, no, I don't recommend this. Run in the other direction immediately. But as always, please tell me what you guys think. This book just came out not that long ago, and it's circling around. It's being recommended, so I want to know what you guys think about it. If you have a different opinion, tell me why. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. Until next time, though, keep reading and have a good one.